The first time I tried to watch The Penguin, I turned it off 30 minutes in. I thought it was boring. The shots lingered too long, and the general quality seemed to be lesser than that of the Batman. But thanks to some friends of mine, I realized I was an idiot and I gave it a second chance, and I'm so glad I did because I could not have been more wrong. The Penguin reminds me of Marvel's Daredevil show, and not because the characters of the Penguin and Daredevil are similar at all, but because of what these shows accomplish. On the surface, they both deal with gangs and struggles for power, but when you look deeper, they're much more similar than you might expect. Both shows take properties that seem larger than life and break their stories down to the street level. Both deal with the aftermath of catastrophic events within their worlds, and both create some of the most compelling and narratively sound villains I've seen in a while. I don't think it's an overstatement to say that Wilson Fisk is among the top tier of MCU villains, even when compared with the movies. And I don't think it's too early to say that the Penguin or Sofia Falcone, or Gigante, will be remembered any less significantly within the Batman universe, no matter how large it gets. Because the depth of these characters displayed over just 8 episodes is astounding. And anyone working on superhero projects should aspire to achieve what HBO's The Penguin has just done. Now, let's break down the season because I need to talk about it, and spoilers for literally everything. Let's start with the man himself. Oswald Cobb. The amount of layers that this character has would make Shrek proud. At the beginning, we see a man trying to make his younger self proud. You begin to realize that Oz takes pride in coming from nothing, and he wants to give back to people like him in his own twisted way. And again, as time goes on, you see that Oz's desire to rise through the ranks of Gotham's underbelly isn't just for himself or for Gotham's lowest citizens. It's for his mother. His mother is a constant voice in the back of his head, and he's been trying to win her approval for years. All of these factors converge into one man who can pull from each of these sources as motivation. And in different scenarios, Oswald is motivated by different things. There's a great dynamic in this show where you can never tell if Oz is acting on behalf of himself, Vic, his mother, or his city. At the beginning of the show, this was hard for me to grasp because I didn't have all the information yet. When he was forming his relationship with Vic, I thought it progressed a little unnaturally. I was like, he's putting way too much trust in this kid. But as you watch the show, that rationale unravels, and you can completely understand why Oz made that decision and wants so much out of Vic. I think that's the sign of a great show. They make such committed, intentional choices that they may give you pause at first, and things that you may have had a harder time with at the beginning are crystal clear by the end. It's the same way that I felt about Succession. Each character is so distinct that they almost feel like caricatures, and by the end you understand every decision that they make and who they are at a human level. That's the way I felt with Oz. You understand every move he makes, why he does what he does, and you alone as the audience can see this moral code that every other character insists that he doesn't have. And these overlapping motivations are what make those ending moments with Oz so unbelievably tragic. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'll talk about the plot and the ending soon and why they're so poetic, but first we need to dive into the other main breakout star of the show, Sofia Gigante, or as we know her at the beginning, Sofia Falcone. They could have called this series The Hangman and it would have made just as much sense, because this character is every bit as important as Colin Farrell's Penguin. Kristen Milioti gives one of the best performances of the year as part of the Falcone crime family. And not only did she kill it in this role, but this role allowed for her to kill it. Every part of her progression felt natural. You know that there's something off about her from the start, but you just assume that it's because she's the hangman and she killed all of those girls. You assume that her family wants her out of the picture because she's a loose cannon and things are different now. But as the series goes on, you realize, no, she didn't kill those girls. She used to be innocent. And it's only her years in Arkham that twisted her into this new thing. That and the ever-present knowledge that her father killed her mother and then sent her away to Arkham when she figured it out. You understand why he thought that she was different. She was smarter than the rest, and that ended up being her downfall. And once this realization comes, you suddenly understand the rest of the family's desire to see her gone. They feel guilty having sided against her, and they fear what she might do to them. The show gave us 2 equally vile options to believe why her family treats her the way they do, but they just hid one of them in plain sight. And from here on out, you can understand her descent into obsessive madness when it comes to Oz, because he stole the one ray of light in her life. The cherry on top for me was in the second to last episode when she has a breakdown after seeing the scars on her younger cousin Gia. She understands just how far she's gone off the rails. The line where she says, "I walked out of one institution into another," killed me. You're rooting for her to make the right decision and give up this life, but she just can't. Not while Oz is still breathing. And for most of the show, she's framed as the antagonist, the villain. But if you look at her story from the outside, she was more like the hero. She was wronged by her family and got revenge on them. Anything that she did beyond that was really just to avenge her brother, and it was harmless for the most part. But then, at the end of the 7th episode, she accepts the villain role. She blows up Oz's underground lair, and with it, an entire block of innocents in Crown Point. She must have known that this blast would kill innocents, but she no longer cares. She's obsessed with Oz and torturing him, and she has blinders on because she keeps telling herself once this is all over, she can leave Gotham for good and start a new life. But of course, it's never that simple. Her journey is one of the best arcs I've seen on television in a while, and never was that more on display than in the finale. I just watched the finale, so I wanted to dedicate some time to just talking about how this season ended. It felt Shakespearean. When Sofia finally has Oz in her grasp, she's able to torture him. But it's not just your typical torture that so many B-tier villains are satisfied with. It's emotional torture. She's able to work out her own unresolved issues with her father by having Oz and his mother have the same conversation that she wishes she could have with her father. She makes Oz all but admit to killing his brothers, and she makes his mother admit that she knew and even plotted to kill him. It's so complex and satisfying to watch, and it's so much more powerful than any gag or instrument of pain could ever be. But of course, the tide turns and Oz escapes, and it was at this point in the show where I was like, I really don't know who's going to win. In most superhero-esque projects, you kind of already know who's going to win from the beginning. But because Oz and Sofia are both anti-heroes, you're left at the end feeling the sense that anything can happen, and that is so rare. But of course, Oz ends up getting the last laugh and he gains the upper hand. It's the people that surround Oz that won him this fight, because he does actually treat them well. Sofia never had that love or loyalty around her, and that's what ultimately costs her. But just when you expect the show to zig, it zags, and Oz doesn't kill Sofia, but he has her arrested. He uses her as political fodder to get himself closer to the city's elected officials, which sets us up beautifully for any further projects with the Penguin. It makes him so much more menacing, especially considering how he earned his seat, and Sofia ends up right back where she started. In Arkham. And the letter from Selena Kyle that she receives at the end is the cherry on top of the cherry on top. You can see the gray sense of morality in both characters, and it makes total sense that they would be cut from the same cloth. And while it might seem like Oz won the day, he can't get what he truly wanted. A pat on the back from his mother. It's the perfect ending for his character, because you can't have the anti-hero win completely. There has to be some cost. When she sheds a tear looking out toward the city, and Oz takes it as her having everything she's ever wanted, it's the picture-perfect example of delusion. And I believe that he believes it on the surface, but deep down he knows that his mom despises him. But the best and most shocking moment of the entire season comes at the end with Oz and Vic. The show has already zigged, it's already zagged, but this time it goes off a freaking cliff when Oz chokes Vic to death because he realizes that he's becoming too close to him. He just went through all that pain with his mother, and he says to himself that he cannot do that again. Wow. My mouth was on the floor. It's truly one of those unforgettable moments that will become a point of comparison for future projects. We'll be like, did anything hit as hard as when Oz choked Vic? No? Then it's not as good. But in all seriousness, I don't think Matt Reeves can miss at this point. This has gotten me all the more excited for a potential Court of Owls adaptation, and seeing the bat signal in the very last shot of the season gave me goosebumps. I'm really excited for James Gunn's DCU, but I think it might have a hard time exceeding the level of quality on display here, because the Penguin is just that good. But what did you think? Do you agree? Let me know in the comments. Please like this video and subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.